Okay, great. So let's get started. My name is Rafi Shulman. I'm the co-founder of Olim Advisors, and I want to welcome all of you to this webinar tonight. We have over 220 people from around the world that have registered, and it's just amazing. It's inspiring to see how many people are thinking about making Aliyah, or planning about making Aliyah, want to make Aliyah, and we want to help as many people as possible. So what I'd like to do at this moment is introduce you to the wonderful people who are joining us tonight to share their stories and really to give you the inside scoop about making Aliyah. So Lara, why don't we start with you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lara Itzhaki. I'm the co-founder with Rafi Shulman of Olim Advisors. We started this venture in 2016, trying to help people come to Israel, making the process as smooth, as easy as possible. These are just a few of the people that we've helped along the way. Amazing people. We get to know them all very, very well. Them, their families, and become part of the Aliyah success, Baruch Hashem. So why don't we introduce you guys one by one? And if you can just tell everyone where you're from, where you moved to, and then we're going to give some great stories and some great advice to everyone. So why don't we start with you, Lucy Fisher?
Hi, I'm from the United States, from Huntsville, Alabama. I came to Israel now, it's 9 months ago. So I have quite a story. I came here by myself with my dog. I live in northern Israel. It's called Nahariya, about 5 miles from the Lebanese border. So I'm in the periphery, that's what it's called.
Yeah, you see the beautiful beach every day. You're very lucky, Lucy.
Minute walk away, 2 minutes.
Wonderful. Dan, why don't you go next?
Sure. I'm Dan Cohen from the amazing community of Oakland, California. And the only thing that could take me away from Oakland, California was the opportunity to live here. My wife and I moved, and our kids moved to Ra'anana in 2017. And I'm proud to say we were one of the early Olim Advisor customers, and the concierge service continues even to this day. So we love Olim Advisors, and I'm happy to tell everybody about our journey and about some of the lessons we've learned along the way. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Can't wait.
Rachel, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, my name is Rafi Brandler, and we moved from Plainview, Long Island, here to Modiin. I have 3 kids, and we came in the summer, thank God, this summer.
Amazing. Thank you. Miriam Zelda, how about you?
So my husband's here too. We made Aliyah from Atlanta, Georgia this past summer with 7 kids, thank God. We have been so grateful for the help Olim Advisors has offered us and provided, and we couldn't have done it without you.
Thank you so much. David, do you have anything else to add?
I'm sorry, my background is not as cool as everybody else's. I'm one of the coaches.
You're cooler than us.
We just finished a baseball game, so I didn't want to miss it. So anyway, it's great to see everybody.
It's all good. Thanks for joining us. Eyal, you're up.
Good evening. Eyal Goldberger. Just moved here 7 months ago with my wife and kids from Miami, Florida. And we visited Lucy's neighborhood of Rosh Hashanah just this weekend with a beautiful background. So Lucy, you definitely live in an amazing place in Nahariya. And we currently live in Mevaseret, right outside of Jerusalem.
Amazing, amazing. I think that's everybody, right? We got everybody?
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Great. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I want to just go over a few quick things before we get started. The first thing is we are going to be recording this. So if you need to leave early, if you come late, don't worry about it. We'll send out an email within a couple of days and you'll be able to watch it over and over again. Also, please share it with other people as well. So I'm sure that you know people who are planning Aliyah or thinking about it. We want to help as many people as possible. So feel free to share it. We will also have Lara and my contact information at the end. So if you want to reach out to us, if you have any questions, if you need any help, I really encourage you to do so, because there's only so many questions, and we can't get into everyone's situation in this webinar. And so we want to have one-on-one conversations to really understand what your plans are, what your concerns are, what your challenges are, and let's together come up with a game plan to get you to Israel. And last but not least, we will be doing a Q&A session at the end. So feel free to put your questions in the chat window or the Q&A window, and then we will get to as many other questions as possible when we get to the Q&A session at the end. Okay, so I want to just start off by talking about the picture that I put here on the slide, and it's really an amazing and inspiring story. So the woman that you actually see standing in the middle of the picture with red hair is Risa Shapiro. Risa actually works for us as an advisor, and she did an amazing thing last week. Her and her family, they brought the parents to Israel, Sandy and Rosalie Goldstein, at the age of 101 and 97, which is just amazing. We've been watching Risa for the past few weeks, past months, plan and work towards this. And finally, Baruch Hashem, last week, they came to Israel. And the funny thing is Sandy actually wanted to make Aliyah in his 40s, and he was told back then that he was too old. So he surely showed them. And the point is that if they can do it, if Sandy and Rosalie can make Aliyah at the age of 101 and 97, surely you can as well. Yes, it's not, it's challenging, and yes, you need help and you need to plan. But the point here is that if you really put your mind to it, and if you have the right help, the right support, the right plan, then there's absolutely no reason why you can't make Aliyah. Okay. So I want to just take a moment and kind of go back in time to explain why Lara and I do these webinars, to explain what we're trying to accomplish. And really what we did back in 2016 is that we wanted to inspire and wanted to help other people make Aliyah. We both love Israel. We're very passionate Zionists, and we really feel that Israel is our home. But we know that it's not easy, and we know that it's challenging. And so we wanted to figure out a way to help more people come home. And so we met with Nefesh B'Nefesh and the other wonderful organizations, and we asked them, what do you do? What don't you do? What do Olim need? And they guided us along the way. And really, a lot of the success, in essence, hundreds of people, the thousands of people that we've helped over the years to make Aliyah and adjust to life of Israel, have really been as a result of the support and the feedback that we've gotten from these organizations. And that's really what we set out to do, provide a service that really is broken up into two parts. The first part is to help people who have been thinking about and dreaming about making Aliyah, and help them with the decisions. So a lot of the people we talk to say, look, I'd love to come to Israel, but I don't even know where I want to move to. Up north, down south, east, west. For a lot of people, they're not familiar, they don't know. And so we want to help them make that decision. And then if they have kids, then it's a question of finding schools. Do they want to send their kids to school in the city? Do they want to bus their kids? There's so many options these days. And so we're, in essence, their eyes, their ears, their legs on the ground to do the research. And then, of course, the last piece of this big puzzle is finding a home. Whether you want to buy a home before you make Aliyah or rent a home, we're here to really help you make these decisions. So when you do get to Israel, you can acclimate and you can adjust as quickly as possible. So that's the first part of Aliyah. The second part is really adjusting to life in Israel. And for many of us, that's the harder part. Getting here in many ways is the easier part. The harder part is dealing with the day-to-day challenges of bureaucracy, the bank, the government offices, the schools and registrations, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, there's just the ongoing challenges that we all face. And you'll hear from all the Olim that living in Israel, while it's wonderful and rewarding, it's tough, it's challenging, and it's important that you know this. It's important that you have a positive attitude so that you can overcome it. And most importantly, it's important that you have support, that you have help. And that's where we come in, is that we want to help you adjust to life, and so that you can really lead a very happy, a very fulfilling life. And that's one of the reasons why we don't just help Olim Chadashim, Olim, the new Olim. The challenges don't just end when you get here. They continue for months, sometimes years. And so we want to provide help in any way that we can, whether it's for families with children with special needs, or maybe it's with people who have to deal with the healthcare, or if you want to buy a home, we're here to guide you through the process. So our goal is really to help you get here, and then to help you lead a very happy, a very fulfilling life. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the superstars of the show. And there's a few questions, a few topics that we wanted to talk about. And so, Dan, let's get started with the first one. What were some of your biggest Aliyah challenges?
Well, thank you again to the Olim Advisors team. I think, the major thing that I can give everybody an advice is to focus on your attitude. Your attitude is 100% of your success, not 95%. Your attitude will be 100% of your success. And there's three keys to the attitude that I'd encourage you to think about. Number one, you left the United States, you're thinking about leaving the United States for a reason. And I'd hold on to that, right? I was just in Aventura, Florida last week. There's kosher foods. My friend is the head of school there. He's amazing. There's an amazing community, but you want to come to Israel for a reason. And I'd hold on to that reason at all costs. The second thing is to recognize that you are whoever you are in your community. When you come to Israel, you are not that person. So if you're a big fish where you come from, you're not going to be a big fish anymore, but that's okay. And having an attitude that says, I'm going to come, I'm going to learn, I'm going to meet people. I think that that's the second and most important attitude. And then the third thing that I would say for those of you who are coming with kids, my absolute 100% ironclad lead pipe lock rule. Never ask your children if they want to go back to the United States of America if that's not on the table. Our friends who've had successful aliyot because they were never going to leave have never asked that question. We have never asked that question. Our friends who were teetering about whether or not they were going to stay have asked that question, and then they were put in a really hard position with their kids. So if you're coming with kids and you intend to stay, that's one of those questions that you just don't ask. So I would say your attitude is the absolute number one thing. Remember why you are in America and remember why you want to come here. Your attitude will determine your success, and the way you interact with your kids, for those of you who are thinking about coming with kids, is to be very focused on why you're here and how success looks like once you're here. And I'll stop there.
Great. That's amazing advice. Thank you. Rachel.
Hi. I think one of the hardest things that we had in the beginning, since we were planning to come for 3 years, was not knowing. Especially one of my kids wanted to know right away, well, are we moving? Are we going, Mommy? Can I tell our friends? And I really had to explain to her. And I think it also was a good learning experience for her to see that you can research, you can look, you can try, you could see. And I would tell her we would like to, but these are the things we have to look into. So even though it was hard for her not to know, I think it also was a good learning process. And then now that we're here, I'm finding for myself just sort of what's difficult is getting into a routine. My routine keeps changing because I was in Opan, I'm out of Opan, people visit, it's the holidays, and as Dan was saying, you're not necessarily the same person or doing the same things that you were doing in your last home, and you need to refine yourself and find those things that you want to do in your new home. Those would be the two things that I'd say.
Great, thank you. Eyal, you're next.
So our move was a little bit rushed, as Laura knows. We actually made Aliyah and found Laura in just 3 or 4 months. We made Aliyah, and I moved here for a job. So we also moved here with young kids and a dog. So if you're making Aliyah with a pet, the process is very, very difficult. And I would definitely take some lessons learned and ask for help on transferring a pet. It's a lot more difficult than a human. But at the same time, moving with 2 young kids, 2.5 and 4.5 years old, one word of advice that I can give everyone that they can never really be prepared for is the viruses in Israel are different than the United States, especially for young kids. And you will find yourself at the doctor's office pretty much every single week. But the beautiful thing is it's free. So, and that's okay. But you see everyone laughing in the background, but really that is something that we have experienced for the last 7 months. But that's okay. It's challenging and it's not easy, but it'll pass and it'll only make your kids stronger, right? So that is one of the biggest challenges we faced since we moved here, aside from the bureaucracy that we'll get to later. But and thank you to Laura and the team. Everything else was actually very easy.
Great, thank you. David, you're up.
when I came on the pilot trip in May, I remember talking to my brother and his wife who live here, Modiin. His wife is Israeli. I was talking about our mindset. We moved in August, so it was coming up, and I was equating like the mindset I had to, I think it was like the Vikings, who when they went to invade a country, as soon as their ships landed on the shore, they burned it, right? And it's like, we're gonna fight. There's no retreat. And my sister-in-law, as she often is looking at me, she's like, are you insane? There's so much pressure already. Treat it like an adventure, and it just opened everything up. And it's like, we talked to the kids before moving, because like any parent, if the kids are happy, then you're going to be happy. And we spoke about, guys, it's going to be an adventure. Hashem is leading us on an adventure. And when you have that mindset, when you're on an adventure, you can roll with anything. And we feel that's been a huge asset and really helped for a really smooth transition. Our kids are happy. And I remember a question when we first started talking to Rafi about where we wanted to live. We want to live in an Israeli community, an American community. We're like, hey, you know what? We're coming to Israel. It doesn't matter. If we wanted to just stay in an American community, we'd stay here. But thank God we moved to a community that has a big, American and English speaking population, because the day we landed, our kids made friends. There's parks everywhere. Kids here have an independence that our kids did not have, in the States. But the fact that they made friends, and we got here a few weeks before school started, that like flipped a switch. And it's like our kids have been, and our family's been on as soft a landing as possible.
Great, thank you. Lucy, what are your thoughts?
Well, my grandfather came to Israel from Russia in 1915, second Aliyah. So he dealt with mosquitoes and swamps. I dealt with was the government offices. Very difficult. So that was the most frustrating thing with me, because it seemed like problems were being invented. Multiple steps to do something, which in the United States would take one step. With the banking system, with the Mevaseret, Mevaseret Klita. It was multi-layered, with the codes, and that was the most frustrating thing for me. I called it a term, the banana republic meets the computer age. Now, why I wanted to go to Israel, I can't really define, but it's like almost like a microchip turned on inside of me when I was 17, and I wanted to come to my whole life. So after 6 months, I've conquered all the government offices and all the balagan, and I cannot think of any reason why I would want to return to the United States. This is where I belong. Every day is a challenge. And it's not a question of anti-Semitism in the United States or political turmoil. It's a question of complete boredom outside of Israel. Every day in Israel is a challenge. Every day is exciting. So it's not only a positive attitude you have to have. I would add also a stubbornness, like the early pioneers when they came to this country, that you want to make it your own. And I'm very, very happy I'm here now, extremely happy.
Wonderful, thank you. Miriam Zelda.
Excuse me?
Yes, so, I would have to agree with my husband. Obviously, we have taken on this mindset that this is an adventure and has helped us deal with a lot of things that have come up. We made Aliyah with 7 children, thank God, like I mentioned. I would say the most challenging thing we've run into, 7 children and a dog. So I agree with Eyal, that was very difficult to figure out how to get the dog to Israel. But also like finding the right place for all of our children, and making sure that they were happy. We have age range from 15 years old down to 9 months at the time of Aliyah. He's now a little over 1. And just finding the right place where they can all settle in has been the main focus of our time here so far.
I remember when we planned a pilot trip for David, and he came here for a week, and I think he saw 3 or 4 schools a day and was running around. So yeah, it's challenging when you have a lot of kids, but hopefully they will find their place sooner than later. And, it reminds me, a good friend of mine told me or described Israel as it's a big mess, but it's our mess. And I think that's the way we all look at it, right? Is that it's far from perfect, but, this is our home. This is, we're connected to this. And I think, that's really the driver behind a lot of people's Aliyah. Okay, great. So let's move on to the next question or the next topic. Things that you wish that you knew before making Aliyah. So Dan, why don't we start with you again and we'll work our way around.
So I think the first kind of a major one and then a couple of micro ones. I think that there are still cultural walls between how I look at things as an American and how I look at things as an Israeli. And what I will say is I usually get it wrong about 80% of the time. My gut, honed over 5 decades in the United States, it's just wrong a lot. And so I think what I wish I'd known is coming into situations, how to be open to like my gut being wrong. And it can be everything from as simple as like, do you want this or that? Or what do you mean when you say X or Y? I think the second thing is, I'm going to hold that for tips. I think that's the big one. Is just to be open to the fact that there's a lot you don't know, and that the attitude in which you approach what you don't know, whether it's in a work environment or a community environment, I think is a big key to success.
Right. And I think to add to that, it's you don't know what you don't know. And that's a challenge for a lot of people. It's one thing recognizing that there are a lot of things you don't know, but then there's another layer on top of that. But over time, I think things become clear. And it's just like everyone said, having that positive attitude.
1,000,000%. And from a year 5 person, I can tell you, those mistakes go away really fast.
Right. Thank you. Lucy, you're up next.
Well, I felt I had everything under control, really, before I made Aliyah. I was very certain and positive of myself. I had flow charts. I researched everything. I was not being prepared enough. So, again, it goes back to attitude. You have to come in feeling that, okay, you're going to get hit by something. My attitude was, yeah, I have this. I got it. So you got to be open to the possibility that something's going to come up. And every day something does come up. And when you win and when you get to the end, you feel great accomplishment. So I would say, I'm almost 70, as a 70-year-old person, you have to open yourself up to growth. And you're all probably younger than me, but that was the thing that changed in my attitude. To accept the fact that you're going to be growing now, not just stagnant in Israel.
Great, thank you. Miriam Zelda, you're next.
So I would say, I really think that beforehand, I would have wished that I had put more effort into preparing myself for being more conversational in Hebrew. David and I were discussing this before this webinar, and we were saying just if we had a better understanding of how important it would have been, as opposed to, we'll pick it up as we go through our day-to-day. It definitely would have been more helpful to have more conversational Hebrew prior to making Aliyah.
That's a great point.
Right. And there's so many ways to do it these days, whether you're going online and reading newspapers or watching TV shows or listening to music. There's so many options. And there's, of course, there's a lot of online courses as well. So I would agree with you. I think that having a basic understanding of the language can really make a huge difference. That's a very good point. Thank you. Rachel, you're next.
Okay, I have something practical, technical. We wish we would have known to rent a car before we arrived to Israel. We purchased a car that came eventually after a number of months. But when we got to Israel, that's when we decided to rent the car. And it was the summer, so there really weren't a lot of cars available. And if there were cars, they were really expensive to rent. So if you know that you're going to need transportation, one of your checklist things for when you land should be, rent the car, have it for when you arrive, so that hopefully it'll be a little cheaper if you've done it in advance.
Great, thank you. Eyal, what are your thoughts?
Sorry. So a couple of things come to mind. The first thing that I'm not quite sure how to handle or working through is how to file taxes both here and in the United States. It's a bit complicated, but we'll figure it out eventually. And you need to do it always, right? For the rest of your life, at least in the United States. And you got to find a good accounting person to manage your finances here and in the United States. The other thing, you can joke about it or not, I still can't get comfortable or understanding the banking system here. I really find it frustrating. Laura can laugh about it, but it's definitely not what you're used to in the United States with debit cards or credit cards. It's always debit, but anyway, it's something that you just need to completely forget about what you were used to in the United States and adapt what it is here. And the last thing is going back to children being sick and seeing doctors is if you have to go to an emergency room, you can't just show up. You have to have a Tofes 17, which no one teaches you about. And then you have to go running around looking for a Tofes 17 to fill out all the bureaucracy so you don't have to pay for it afterwards. So those are all things you learn along the way. But once you do get through it at least once, it makes it that much easier later on.
Thank you. And just with on the point about the taxes, we typically refer people to an Israeli one and an American one because we haven't found one that handles both. So if you want a recommendation, right, we'd be happy to put you in touch with. But yeah, that's something that really is important to think about your finances. And, I don't know if anyone's really touched upon that, but really to do your budget beforehand and to try and estimate how much things are going to cost you. And part of that, of course, is your taxes and tax liability and things along those lines, because the last thing you want to do is come to Israel and be stressed financially. And so,
and if I could just say, look at how much utilities cost, because you think that the United States is expensive. You haven't seen a water bill or an electric bill here in Israel yet.
Right. Yeah, it's something that needs to be factored in for sure. Thank you. David.
I think first and foremost, the next time I do a webinar with my wife, I need to learn not to give her my answers beforehand. Come on, Hebrew is mine. But I think one thing I learned is, or I wish that I knew, is I remember Rafi, Lara set me up with different realtors who were driving me around the different cities. We weren't quite sure where we were going to live. And also looking, as Rafi said, looking at different schools. To me, it was like, as long as the city has, an English-speaking population, it'll be fine. Hey, look, it's a Jewish school. It will be fine. But what we've seen since we've been here, and thank God it worked out without our planning, is that even within a city, from block to block, you could be on a block, at least we see it in Ramat Shemesh, where, you feel like you sort of click with everybody, and you could be, 2 blocks away and you could sort of feel like an outsider. So, I remember the question we had was, do we want to buy or do we rent? We were open to both, but I think renting for us has been so beneficial because it allowed us to see how we fit within even a neighborhood. And I think the same thing for schools is that when I was looking at schools, I was like, okay, I spoke to the different heads of schools. I'm like, okay, this looks nice, but I wish I would have seen like just how the other kids interact, maybe see carpool, what the parents are like, when they're picking up or dropping off, like, are these the type of families that our family would click with? Because we've seen, like, there's, thousands of Jewish schools, but we've seen that with our family, we've hit on some and on some, we're already transferring to other schools. And that was another thing that we learned. There's no stigma. If you feel it's not a right fit for your kid, just put them in another place. But I just wish I would have understood the whole fit better before we put them in schools and before we moved into neighborhoods. But the neighborhood we're in, we absolutely love, but just something that I wasn't aware of before we moved.
Great, thank you. Okay, and then the last question, the last point. What tips do you have for people who are making Aliyah? If you think back before you made Aliyah, or now that you're here and you're wiser, what would you tell people to really help them plan and help them adjust? So, Racha, why don't we start with you?
Okay, here I have a list of some things.
Great.
First of all, it is never too soon to start to donate and throw things out. Cleaning out and deciding what to bring was incredibly overwhelming and nauseating at certain points. I don't see myself as a materialistic person, but the amount of things, it is overwhelming. And I did it over 3 years and it was still overwhelming. So start to go through your things, donate something, or even just starting to look and see, oh, I haven't used that for a while. Now it's in your mind. And now the next time you look at it, maybe the third time you look at it, you'll feel more comfortable to say goodbye to it. But definitely, I kept envisioning myself in my new home, not being able to move. And I didn't want that. And that really motivated me to be very strict with what I brought. And I'm actually really proud of how strict I was, because I actually have space that isn't used. And I see other people, their garages are filled, their machzan has like boxes. I could actually walk into my machzan and find things. So definitely all your things, go through, start, don't leave it for the end. We read a lot of books. There are books on that you could get on Amazon. I read 3 different books, and that helped a lot with just things to think about. And then we would discuss on Shabbat with my kids. The Hebrew is very important. We had a Hebrew tutor for our kids at least a year before. Wow. And they also did math in Hebrew. I also have older children. The eldest that made Aliyah with us is in 10th grade, and then a 7th grader. So it was important for them. So having a tutor in math and Hebrew was also very helpful. Watching all of these webinars were incredibly helpful. I saw Kim Bash, which then brought me to Olim Advisors and Nefesh B'Nefesh, and just listening to everyone's stories was incredibly helpful. And your school that your child goes to, I would recommend that they have an Olim coordinator. Even here in Modiin, I was surprised that there's a high school someone was telling me about, and they don't know about the benefits for the Olim, but yet, in our school, they do. So make sure that there's an Olim coordinator that you can actually talk to, and they also know what your child should be getting, what services your child should be getting. And even if they're not legally supposed to be getting things, because there's so many Olim in that school, the school does things for the kids. Like, for instance, in my daughter's school, there's Ulpan for math, Ulpan for science. They have, Sherut Leumi girls that work with the Olot. They have the social workers. So certain schools that have a lot of Olot Olim, they really work with the children. And if you are on medication, I kept reading, bring 6 months worth, and I would recommend that. Your insurance, I think, my insurance, I just had to call and get like a travel waiver, and then they gave more medication. So I definitely, if you're on medication, come with as much as you can. And if you're not sure about making Aliyah, see if you could spend a summer with your family, just hang here maybe for a month with your family. And I would find that. I would recommend that. Okay, thanks.
Great. Thanks so much. I thought with the first tip, I thought you were going to say it's never too early to start planning. And that's something that comes up a lot. People reach out to us a year, sometimes 2 years before they make Aliyah. And I always tell people, start the research now. You don't have to make any decisions, but why wait until 6 months before, 9 months before it becomes stressful? And so I think within reason, sometimes people reach out to us and they tell us they're making Aliyah in 10 years, probably a little too early to start doing the research. But, within a year to 2 years, I think it makes a lot of sense to start doing the research. Take your time and really devote the necessary time and effort to do the research, because definitely will pay off. So
and
thanks,
people
Rachel.
are really willing to share on social media.
Yeah.
I found people really, really helpful.
I agree. Thank you. Eyal, you're up.
So I second the notion that Rachel mentioned about it's never too early to start getting rid of things, and bringing less is more, really is. I also think before you come or once you move here, you should stop comparing, because you moved to Israel for a certain reason. And at least I found myself, in the first couple of months comparing back and forth on how things were. And, it puts you in a different mindset. So once you stop comparing and just accept that you made the move, then you get to enjoy it a lot more, and you get to experience Israel for what it is. So stop comparing the minute you land off the plane, really. And the third thing is really stop comparing shekels to dollars as well, and how much things cost. You live based on shekels now, so you can't go back and forth on every single item and start comparing prices as well on how much things were, because it's never going to change anything, right? The price is the price. And I think really that's about it from my point of view on. And ask questions, join Facebook groups. There's a lot of Facebook groups that you can join to ask questions before you move, and people here in Israel really love to help, and people that made Aliyah help as well. So there's tons of Facebook groups out there that you can join and ask questions on how to accumulate, how to assimilate.
That's great advice. We actually have a Facebook group we started a couple of years ago called the Anglo Support Network in Israel, and it's about 9,000 members. And really, everyone's trying to help everybody else. And there's great information on there. So it's a good point. And I invite everyone to join the group. And just ask questions, and also help other people who have questions as well. All right, Lucy.
Just starting to, but Eyal, so you make it a point to travel the country with your kids and your family. It's amazing.
Yeah,
you work hard. You work very hard, and then you make sure to go all over.
That's, if you're gonna live here, you better enjoy it and see the country. If you're gonna be stuck in your little 10-mile, 20-mile radius, you're really not getting the full experience of what this beautiful country has to offer. So try to make it a point to travel around the country if you can.
Great, thank you. Okay, David, you're up.
Yeah, I would say like many people, before we decided to make the jump, we wanted things lined up. You hear advice from everybody. Wait until your kids are this age. Financially, we want to reach this point. So we did our due diligence, and we felt like we had everything lined up. Okay, financially, it's going to work like this. This income is going to come from here. This income, right? And we got here, nothing worked out the way that we planned. I mean nothing, right? But we thank God that we jumped into the pool. What made us do the jump is that we felt we had everything lined up. My wife and I talk about it, that if we felt like, well, we're not quite there yet, we'd wait. But our kids are happy, our family is happy. And what we've seen is that, it would have been fine for us to jump in, because people here are very, very welcoming. And people want to help, as other people said, and even the government. As soon as we landed, they give you they give you that envelope of of money, and they have so many services. Like to touch on something Eyal mentioned, just to twist it up a little bit about not comparing. Sometimes it's good to compare because everybody who comes to Israel brings something. Okay, so in many cases, you may see, hey, you know what? I could do this better. My wife sees it with medicine. And I thought, even though I have a business, my background is news. So as soon as I got here, one of the major news organizations got a hold of me. I haven't done news in years, but they had me come in, and I just offered tips to help like professionalize everything. Common sense stuff, but it made a big impact here, you know, and that, you know, we couldn't have planned, you know, for that. And my wife saw there was no pediatric urgent care centers, something that like, yeah, your kid's not feeling good, an emergency, you take them to, you know, to the urgent care in, you know, in America. But she saw there wasn't one. So you know what? She's starting one, and she's getting support. The mayor of the city, you know, some big heavyweights, they see, oh, wait a second, you know how to do this. They see her background, and they are offering their major support because she compared what was being offered here and said, I could do it better, you know. So we see it, you know, it is true. Don't compare. Oh, it's just better there. It's just better there. If we're just gonna feel that way, it's not going to be enjoyable. But when you see it as an opportunity, there is hunger really to do things better here. It's a very innovative, you know, mindset here. You know, and we see it with the kids. The kids are very independent because they want the kids to be able to think on their feet, and you know, they're very, very, very supportive. If they see somebody's here, and they're very pro-immigrant here. You know, there's so many resources. They set us up with this business mentorship because my wife and I expressed interest in it. So we have, you know, you know, we don't pay for it, but it's outstanding. So many resources. I know Rafi and Lara, you know, hold our hands and put us in touch with resources, but also Nefesh B'Nefesh, and even the government. We've actually gotten phone calls from different government offices wanting to know, hey, how's it going? You know, so I would say, don't wait for everything to be perfect. At some point, you show someone the face and jump into the pool and know that there are lifeguards around, and then see you know, these comparative, you know, situations, but see it as opportunities for you to come in and make a real difference and be financially successful.
Great, thank you, David. Dan, you're up.
So I took the opportunity to crowdsource these for my family. So I'm going to go in rapid succession.
Okay.
These are our choices. They don't have to be your choices, but I wanted to just be explicit about a couple of things. So number one, we made a decision to move to an Anglo-centric community in Ra'anana. There's two pockets of Anglos. One side of town is very American. Another side of town is very British and South African. We chose to go to a community where we would have a soft landing, where we would be able to converse in English. Our kids would be around people that they would be able to make connections with, just like David described. It doesn't mean it has to be your choice, but it worked for our family. The second choice we made is that when it came down to schools, we prioritized in the first year social over academics. Our kids will and have plenty of time to succeed academically. The most important thing in that first year was to get them comfortable, to get them succeeding socially, to make sure their Hebrew was right, and to give them an opportunity to become culturally Israeli. The academics have absolutely taken care of themselves in the final year, in the years that have passed. The third item I wanted to take, for those of you who may be thinking about coming with teenagers or older kids, one of the things that we had to do was to not impose our college admissions energy from America onto Army service. They are two very different processes, and it's very easy as an American to say, take all that high school energy about getting my kid into the right college and then want to go fight to get your kid into the right unit in the Army. That is not how it works. And so I'd encourage you, if you're coming over with kids, maybe bar mitzvah and older, to make sure that you channel that energy into other things like human fulfillment. Make sure your kids are happy. I think the last thing that I want to leave you with is that in America, especially in smaller Jewish communities outside of New York, we 100% operate from a feeling of scarcity. Every Jewish family is sacred. Every Jewish family, if we lose them at the day school, it's going to have tumbling repercussions across the community. What I would say is Israel, it's the exact opposite. We are in a situation of abundance. We have so many people and so much great going on and so many opportunities. And I think David put it beautifully that part of the goal is to make sure you connect with every opportunity that's out there. This is a country that is absolutely interested in wanting you to succeed. Yes, there are vestiges of socialism. Yes, there's vestiges challenges of the kibbutz mentality, but this is climate where people absolutely want you to succeed. And it's not an accident that the Nefesh B'Nefesh advertising has now changed from my Aliyah flight to my Aliyah life. Okay, you're going to spend a long time here. And the first year can be really scary or really threatening. And what I could tell you is it's tough, but you know what? Everything else in life is tough. And when you get through it and you come out on the other side, you wake up like me 5 years later and like your family's here, your kids are happy, your wife's happy, you're talking to other people about wanting to move here. And I think it's just a really unique and amazing time to want to make Aliyah. So I'm thrilled you're all on the call. Obviously, Rafi can connect you with any of us, and anybody who wants to chat to me or any of the panelists, please, please reach out. But come on over. The water's warm.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Lucy, you're up.
Well, as I told you before, I came by myself. So my advice is get help. There's many organizations that help besides Olim Advisors. Nefesh B'Nefesh helped me a lot. Olim Advisors, I thought it was just frivolous padding, but it turned out to be a life support instead. So as far as the banking system, yes, I had some difficulty here because I'm in the periphery. So I started learning Hebrew pretty fast. But again, you look for someone, a banker who could speak English. Now with my taxes, I realized I have to get an accountant who is proficient in English. So these things I realized right away to be aggressive in getting what you need. Because really, we're all really Americans the way we were brought up. I live in an area, it's a periphery, so very little English spoken. So my street Hebrew became very well developed by necessity. So that's one reason why I chose to come to Nahariya. Plus, I have 2 friends here. And I'm speaking with Nefesh B'Nefesh has been very good too. I have someone who calls me every month. I said, I'm still here. But they said before Nefesh B'Nefesh, the return rate in the United States was 90%. That's how high it was. And, this is the Middle East. This is not an Anglo country. You may live in an Anglo area, but this is the Middle East when it comes to the banking system, to the mentality, and you feel very much in the periphery. That's why I'm glad I'm here. I wanted to absorb into this culture. I have some Israeli friends, and I speak to them in Hebrew, they speak to me in English. That's the way it goes. But I say the biggest tip I say is prepare for help. It's very hard to do it by yourself. Very hard.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Lucy, what would you tell retirees? What was your retirement life like in the States as compared to what it is here?
Weird retiree, first of all. I mean, nobody leaves their whole family and comes here by themselves with their dog. It all comes down to attitude. You have to be completely flexible. Because most people, when they pass 65, are just dead set in their thinking, their ways. It's very hard for them to envision leaving their country. And it's something that young people do. Even in your 40s, it gets more difficult. So it really has to be a change in your attitude. Most retirees come here because their families are here, their children, grandchildren. I came here, really, I have nobody here. I just wanted to live in Israel. So I think what happened with me is my attitude became more flexible, more like a 20-year-old. And that's the biggest thing is your state of mind.
Right.
Stubbornness. Or just saying, oh, I'm just going to go down with it, whatever happens.
But do you feel like you have more opportunities here?
Definitely. I was a pharmacist during my career. The average pharmacies want me in because of my English skills. So I haven't done that. What I'm doing instead is I'm working for a Beit Tikkun, girls and boys at risk. And it's a periphery, so I really like working with these troubled teens. I know enough Hebrew. I'm a private tutor teaching English. I would never have this opportunity in the United States, ever. Everything would be closed today. And I just joined the gym, and it's all Israelis. And they used me as a model for some yoga thing and screaming in Hebrew. So again, I started learning these moves in Hebrew. It's just open for all these possibilities for learning a language, getting to know people. It's a different culture. I have one American friend here, two American friends. One lives up on the mountain. So most of my contacts are either Israeli or foreign. And it's they keep me young, I think. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thanks, Lucy. Miriam Zelda, you're next.
So there's a couple of things I wanted to mention. I think as an introvert and a working mom, I was very much like, okay, I need to do my research. I need to read these things. I need to watch the webinars. I need to make my list. I need to make decisions and whatnot. And I wasn't until I was a little bit into the process where I was like, and kept being told, talk to people. Well, why don't you talk to this person about this school or this person about that neighborhood? And I'm like, I don't have time to talk to people. I just, let me find the information online or speak to Rafi or whoever, and then I'll like just make the decision. But I really do think that once I took a deep breath and took a step back, that really starting to talk to people who are here, people who went through the process, people who made decisions about where to put their kids or who had kids in the schools we were considering, really made a big difference. There's something you get from talking to people that you can't get from just reading about it online. So definitely talk to people. I'd say also to be patient with the process, be patient when you arrive here. Everything takes time, everything's new. I remember when we first arrived here, I was so overwhelmed with just getting all my kids to school. And it's like from, then to now, I'm like, I can drive my kids to school now without even thinking about how to get from point A to point B. I don't waste or exhaust that mental energy on it anymore. Now I can start incorporating and learning how to do the next thing. But you got to be patient with yourself. Even a child learning a new language, we don't expect that child to start talking when they're 2 months old. Kids are not talking in full sentences until they're over 2. So we got to give ourselves time to learn the language. I'd say also, I used to come home and be like, I feel like everybody's scolding me all the time. My children's got nenettes. We took our dog to be groomed. They're like, well, you should do it this way, or you're not doing it good enough this way, or whatever it is. And then it was pointed out to me that it's not, you're not being scolded. Everybody here feels like your family, and they want to help you do your best. So they're just sharing the love and caring and advice that they feel you need to be successful. So that really helped me adjust to that. And then the last thing I would say is a really small minor point is that I relied a lot on online grocery shopping when I was back in the US, and figuring out how to do that here makes a big difference. Instead of taking the time to run to the grocery store and figure everything out there. So if you have a chance to start exploring online grocery shopping, then
saves a lot of time.
Yes.
Great,
and
thanks.
Also, don't do webinars with your 15-year-old in the background.
Next time we'll have him
Right,
on.
it adds. I think it's great. You should join in.
Thank you, Miriam Zelda. All right, Rachel, we'll move over to you, and then we'll get into some of the questions that are popping up here. So last but not least, Rachel.
I gave my tips already.
Yeah, we're done.
Oh, sorry. We got everybody?
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. I was going to share the contact information, but I'm having some problems sharing my screen. So in the email that I'll send out with everybody's, with the link to the recording, I'll make sure that we have contact information there so everybody can reach out to us. Let's go through some of the questions. I'm going to stop sharing here and just want to pull up the questions.
Lucy, there's a question for you. If you wouldn't mind sharing an example of a monthly budget for a retiree with a car, health insurance, maintaining health insurance in the States as well. Would you mind giving a ballpark figure for that?
I pay, I got a catalog of plans from Maccabi. I mean, I don't, insurance in the United States, I was on Medicare with a supplement, even that was about, the supplement was about $200 a month. On Medicare to take it out of your Social Security, but I have the highest plan here, Maccabi Shalif, 165 shekels a month. What is that, 165 shekels?
Like 40 bucks.
Yeah, 50 bucks.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Coming from the United States, even with Medicare, you're paying like $800,
Right.
maybe thousands of dollars, $5,000 a year. I live very cheaply. I don't have my furniture. I just came with my dog, my clothes, my computer. So I still have to get my stuff. My biggest expense here, I don't eat out, so I eat very little food, is the electricity. It's a killer. So I pay about, during the summer, $200 a month for electricity. Why? Because I have a Siberian Husky.
He was also in the background. Also wanted to join us.
Okay. Yeah, Nefesh B'Nefesh has a good sample budget for single people, for couples, for families. I'd recommend that you, if you want to get a sense of a budget, it's just a ballpark figure, right? So it depends on, like Lucy said, if you go out, if you have a car and how many kids and so on and so forth, but that's a good place to start. There was a question here about what should you bring? So if anybody wants to chime in, like somebody's actually not bringing a lift, they're just bringing suitcases, and somebody else is bringing a lift. So what are your thoughts on what you should bring and what you shouldn't bring, just kind of briefly? Who wants to chime in?
I could comment. A lot of our American furniture is very, very heavy and big for spaces here in Israel that at least I've seen so far. I did bring a full dining room set from my grandparents just because I really wanted to try and salvage it. And it is tight where I'm living now, but I'm hoping, God willing, in the future to have space. But most dining rooms in Israel, of Israelis that I've seen so far, they don't have the table, the chairs, the buffet, the break front. You know, it's really just like table, chairs. And then I didn't go as far. I never had time to think about big appliances, but I know that was something that people talked a lot about on social media. I'll stop there. Big things are big. So unless it's really important to you, if it's really heavy and clunky, I wouldn't bring it.
Right. Yeah, that's the advice that we give as well, is that the prices have come down a lot in Israel, and you can get LG and Samsung, you can get all the name brands here. It might be more expensive, but it's not that much more expensive. And keep in mind with appliances, there's not just an issue of the adapter, but mechanical engineers can explain to you why the different voltage here can have an impact on your appliances. And so unless you really are in love with your large laundry machine or something like that, then you're okay.
If I could just
People
mention,
have told me that they measured for their washer and dryer, but yet they didn't realize that their washer and dryer now couldn't fit through their doors. So just little things like that.
so we actually brought a washer dryer with us, as you can imagine, thank God, with a large family. I am so grateful. We actually have Israeli neighbors who have 7 children too. And before our lift arrived, she invited us to use their washer dryer to do laundry. And I brought over half a laundry bag, in theory, knowing that Israeli washing machines are so much smaller. And I could only fit half of that laundry bag. So a quarter of a laundry bag. So yes, we thankfully were in touch with the people who were renting the apartment we are in beforehand. And they had said, they had actually already enlarged the doorways to fit the washer dryer, and they had upgraded the electricity. And so it worked out well for us. And it's not always the right decision, but if you're coming with a large family and you have the option, I would definitely encourage you to bring an American size washer dryer with you.
But wired for Israel. We bought one.
Right.
There's a company up in New York that specifically had one that was wired to run on electricity here. And they shipped it to Atlanta, and it was waiting on the lift when the lift came to us. So we ended up losing a lot of like household appliances because it didn't run on the electricity over here. But we do recommend, especially if you have a large family, that you look into. I know my wife has the name. I don't know if she got it from you, Rafi and Lara, but of this company in New York that has American-sized washers and dryers, but set up to run on Israeli power. It really has been a godsend for us. And the other thing is, when we filled our lift, somebody gave us a good tip that, if there's like special breakfast cereals that the kids like or that you like, go to Costco, make a Costco run and load them up on the lift. Just, little treats that may or may not be available here. I know my wife likes like Chex cereal and Crispix and stuff like that not so easy to find here. So when we have friends come and they ask, can we bring anything? She's like, yeah, can you bring me a box of Crispix? But to put as much as you can of just little favorite things that make you feel comfortable at home, so you have it when you get here, because not everything will be so easy to find.
Right. What about things that you brought in your suitcases, right? Because we all know the lifts take a while, and so what are things that you would recommend that people pack so when they get to Israel and then pack those suitcases, especially if they're coming with kids, or if they're not, that you have almost from day one?
I would recommend sheets and towels and know exactly where they are, so that when you are exhausted and get to where you're going, you can go to sleep. We happen to have bought the beds of the family that was here before us, so we had what to sleep on right away. If not, maybe some people can borrow or bring air mattresses, but if you are going to have beds when you arrive, have the sheets and towels, and a basic like frying pan and a pot. And all your, I guess, the clothing that you need. I actually didn't want my lift. I was overwhelmed. I was enjoying living without my lift for a while. But once it came, I was happy to see my stuff.
Okay. And on that note, somebody's asking a question. Sorry, Lara. Somebody's asking a question about costs. What I'd recommend is that you reach out to at least 2, if not 3, shipping companies to get quotes. I'll give you free quotes. You can really compare the different services. We have a shipping guide that we can send out to anyone who's interested that goes over some of that. But that's really important. You want to make sure you go with a company that you feel comfortable with, and the costs are reasonable. Lara, yeah.
I have to leave. My dog is standing by the door, but I want to mention that the people here in Israel are very, very generous and wanting to help. So I came here with very little things, basically just like a suitcase with my dog, and people I hardly knew gave me linens and towels and sheets and things to cook with. So the individual people here are very, very warm and very loving, and my neighbors, they wanted to help me. So in contrast to the government offices, if you need anything, the individual people will want to give to help you out, new immigrants. And that's what I found so much to be true here.
Amazing.
Right. Thank you, Lucy. Okay, we'll take one more question here, and then if you have to get going, thanks, Lucy. Thanks for joining us. You can head out. And the question, I guess, about getting around without a car, right? They asked specifically about Nahariya, but what are your thoughts in general about bringing a car, getting around without a car? What thoughts do you have? Anyone?
I could comment on that. We have one car and my husband brings it to work. In the beginning, I felt very healthy not having a car, not just physically, but mentally. It was really good to be outside, to walk around, and to walk everywhere I needed to go. But also every place that I needed to go was in my own Dalit Amo, Oakland, work. I have a grocery store down the block. But after a while, I also was starting to feel like claustrophobic because I wanted to get out of Modiin. I wanted to go see other things, or even supermarket shopping. I didn't want to have to wait for my husband to come home and then go late at night supermarket shopping. So I'm trying to hold out as long as possible to, get a second car. And part of me feels spoiled, that I need a second car, but it's doable with that one, depending on your community. I do have a supermarket that I could walk to, but it also isn't the most economic, it's more expensive. But as we keep saying, people are looking to help, so you can get rides with people. When they go shopping, you could go with them. I have used the bus, for certain things, which is fine, and it helps you to learn the area.
I think it also depends on where you live. Some areas have a lot more public transportation.
Yeah, right.
Those of us that have older kids, or they're in the army or in Shirut, they're using public transportation. They're getting places.
In Modiin, the public transportation has been amazing, especially for my children. They love their independence. They go everywhere on the bus. They taught me how to use the bus and how to use the Get app. No, the Move It app.
Move it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, I think just looking at the clock, we have to end it. But I want to thank each of you for joining us tonight, for your very insightful and helpful advice. Hopefully, everyone that joined us tonight learned a little bit from this. Again, we want to encourage you to reach out to us. We're happy to help you in any way that we can, and we'll send out a recording in a couple of days. And remember, let's go back to the story that I started with, with Sandy and Rosalie, who made Aliyah at 101 and 97. If they can do it, you can as well. So thanks, everyone. Have a good week. Chag Purim Sameach. Enjoy, and hopefully we'll see you on the next webinar. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.